Okay, so let's have a quick look at coding this in Python. So we're going to start the Python shell. Just going to keep that up in the top corner there, and I need a new file. So we're going to start by looking at using a random number. So if you're not familiar with random numbers, they're not in Python by default. We've got to bring them in. So we need to say from random, which is where all the random functions are. I want only one, and I want to import the rand int function. Then I obviously need a main to put all my code in, and then eventually somewhere later on we'll call main. That will always be at the end of our code. So let's have a look at our rand int function. How does it work? So I'm going to say rand num, get the syntax right, rand num equals rand int, which is a function that I've imported, and it takes a couple of parameters, which are the first and last numbers, and I want to print that out so I can actually see if it's worked. Print rand num. Okay, so let's just see if that one works. So we'll run the module. Obviously I've got to save it. I'm just going to save it on the desktop, call it rand num guess, and yeah, guess me a random number 8. Not very exciting. Let's just run it again. 9. Oh gosh, is it generating lots of random numbers? I don't know. So I'll just put it in a quick loop for x in range 1, 10. So that'll give me 10 random numbers. Generate the random number and print them. So let's just run that module. There we go, we've got some numbers, 1, 9, so it certainly went down to 1. Run it again. Oh yeah, we got the number 10 then. So there's our basic random number generator. We know that this is how the random function works, and we had to import it from random, which is where there's a whole range of random commands. So how did this now relate to our program? Well, let's get rid of the for loop because I don't want that in my program. I do need to get the random number generated, and just while we're testing it, I'm going to actually leave printing in the random number so I can see what it is. Again, just notice how when I edited that the spacing went a bit haywire. I must make sure everything's indented 4 spaces on 1 tab, or at least be consistent within my code. So looking at our plan, what was the next thing we needed to do? Well, we needed to ask the user to get put some data in, so we said print what number am I thinking of, and then we wanted to get some input, so the user guess is assigned input. So we'll obviously get their number back, and we're now at the decision state because the users obviously type their number in. It's gone into the variable user guess. So we now need to say if user guess is the same as, so remember that's a double equals to do an equality, the random number. Oh, sorry, I called it rand int, didn't I? So if they're the same, I need to say print well done. Otherwise, so if they're different, they could be too big or too small. So I'm going to say if user guess is bigger than the random number, what do I want to do now? Obviously I want to print the fact that it's too big. And you need to think now about the too small bit. So If it was the same, it'll print well done and then go elsewhere. If it was different, it comes into this else function, and we're testing if it's too big, print too big. Well, the other option must have been it was too small. So we can just say else print too small. Okay, that's our basic code. Let's just have a look what that does if we run it. Oh, so misspelled what number am I thinking of? I know the answer is 4, so I'm just purposely going to put 3. Okay, we've got an error. Rand int is not defined. It's in line 8 of the program. If user guess equals rand int, you can look at the coding down here. It's in line 8. If user guess equals rand int, oh, sorry, it wasn't called rand int, was it? It was called rand number. Okay, so that's my first error, probably of many. Let's run it again. So this time it came up with 6. What number am I thinking of? 3. Up. Unorderable string types, string to int. So what's going on in here? Now these are slightly more difficult errors to figure out, so let's just kind of analyze this in detail. First thing is, very last line is important because this will actually describe how Python sees the error. It's got something to do with strings being compared to ints. The actual line where Python thinks the error is then is displayed above. Now it's not always in this line, it's sometimes in the line above, but it's usually pretty good, and if you're struggling where this is in the program, it tells you here that it's in line 11. So it's comparing a string greater than an int within this line, which is telling me the user's guess is a string, and it's trying to compare that if it's greater than a random number, which is an integer. And we obviously can't compare strings and ints using a greater than operator. So the problem here is that user guess is in fact a string. So let's just go back at our code and figure out why. Well, user guess, where did it come from? Well, user guess here was what was returned by the input function. And yes, you guessed it, I forgot. Input always returns strings. So even though I thought user guess here was going to be a number, the input, even if we type in a number, returns it as a string. So what I need to do in my code here is convert what input returns into an integer. So I call the input function, the input returns a value as a string. The string then is in the parentheses of the int function, so it calls the int function, passing in the string, and converts that into an integer and passes that back into user guess. So hopefully now user guess is an integer. Let's run our module again. So I thought of the number 10, I'm going to go 12. Oh, that was too big. Why is it not looped around? I've not put any loops in yet, I'll get around to that in a minute. Let's run it again. What number am I thinking of? 9, I'll go 7. Too small, so that seems to work. Run it again. What number am I thinking of? 10. 10. Well done. Okay, so the basic logic's there. It's certainly printing out. Just correct my spelling to say what number am I thinking about. Now, what we looked at in the plan is some way of when it was too big or too small, looping back and going round. And we keep wanting to go round this loop until we get the right answer, basically. So we're looking for some way of testing whether we've got the right answer. Well, it's here because we print well done. And when we get to the end here, looping back automatically if it's not the right answer. So what we need to do is think where our loop needs to break. So after we've generated the random number and we're printing this, remember this is just a temporary print, so I ought to put a comment in there in for debugging. That might remind me to move it later on. So all of this needs to be in a loop. So within Python we have the while loops. We'll think about the condition in a minute. Let's just get the construction right. So obviously everything now has to be indented because now we're all part of this particular loop. I guess that wasn't too bad. So while some condition, oh, notice my indentation went a bit haywire there. So let's just get that correct. So while something, do all of this and come back to the beginning. And really in here I want to say while, I don't know, kind of think of what I want to say in English. while it's not the right answer or correct answer. So that would make sense. While it's not the correct answer, keep going around here. Well, hang on, correct answer. Correct answer clearly is now some form of variable. We're doing a not on correct answer, so this correct answer must be a Boolean variable. It can be true or it can be false. So when the user guesses the correct answer, and here, oh, I missed the indentation there, that should have been indented in. When the user guesses the right answer, say well done, what we need to do in here is set correct answer to be true. So it will come to the bottom here, it will come back up to the top, and it will say while not correct answer, so this is true. While it's not true, it will keep going around here. When this is true, this then loop won't execute and will fall out the bottom. Okay, let's just have a quick look at that. So we save the source, and oops, correct answer is referenced before assignment in line 8. Well, think about it. We're testing correct answer up here in line 8, and the program's not even run yet. So initially, we haven't even got an answer to know whether it's the correct answer. This is again something that happens quite often in programming. And what we need to do is we just need to assign a value to correct answer initially, just to kick the loop off. So up here in the top of our code, we'll just set correct answer to false. So notice this is outside of the loop. We set correct answer to false. So we now say while not false. So the not of false is true. Hi, so this is true. So it will execute the loop. It'll execute the loop and it'll keep going round here until we get caught in the fact that it's the right answer, when the correct answer will be set to true. And then we'll say while not true, so not true is false, and the loop will end. Okay, let's just test it out. What number am I thinking of? 7, that's too small. 11, that's too big. 10, that's just right, said the little bear. Okay, so there's our basic code, how to write a simple number guessing game in Python.